We routinely find ourselves in conversations that, on the surface, appear entirely one-sided. An exasperated sigh directed at a stubbornly stuck door, a heartfelt plea to a wilting houseplant, or even a stern lecture given to a misbehaving computer. This isn't just a quirk, it's a fundamental aspect of how our brains process and interact with the world around us. From an early age, we're taught to assign agency, even rudimentary consciousness, to non-living entities. Think of how a child scolds a table after bumping into it, or how a cartoon often depicts inanimate objects with faces and voices. This innate tendency, known as anthropomorphism, is far more deeply ingrained than mere childhood fantasy. It's a cognitive shortcut, a way for our complex social brains to make sense of unpredictable or unresponsive phenomena by framing them in terms we understand: intentions, desires, and even faults. This isn't to say we genuinely believe our toaster is plotting against us, but rather that our mental machinery defaults to a social model when faced with events that lack clear, immediate explanations. It's a vestige of a time when attributing spirits or intentions to the rustling leaves or the crashing waves was a powerful, if inaccurate, explanatory tool. We use language not just for communication, but as a tool for thought itself. Talking to an object, even one that cannot respond, helps us externalize our thoughts, to articulate problems, frustrations, or even plans. It's a form of self-dialogue, projected outward, allowing us to organize our internal chaos into a coherent narrative. The simple act of vocalizing a problem to a silent listener, be it a car that won't start or a particularly frustrating spreadsheet, can often clarify our own thinking, much like explaining a concept to someone else helps solidify our understanding. This externalization can also serve as an emotional release. When frustration mounts, a shout directed at a wall or a lament to a broken appliance can provide a momentary vent, a psychological pressure valve. It's a way of acknowledging and expressing an emotion when a more direct or appropriate target isn't available or advisable. Consider the solitary individual working on a complex project. Talking to the components, to the circuit board, or to the lines of code isn't madness. It's a method of engagement, a way to maintain focus and articulate next steps, almost as if an invisible colleague is listening in. This phenomenon highlights the intricate connection between language, cognition, and our emotional landscape, revealing how even our seemingly irrational behaviors often serve a deep, functional purpose within the human psyche. The tendency to project human qualities onto non-human entities, or anthropomorphism, is more than just a charming habit. It's a fundamental cognitive reflex. Our brains are first and foremost social brains. We are hardwired to detect agency, intention, and emotion because these cues are critical for navigating the complex world of human interaction. When faced with an ambiguous situation or an object that behaves unexpectedly, our brains often default to this social processing. For instance, when a car engine sputters and dies, we might instinctively say, "Come on, just start," or "You're being stubborn today." We attribute the car's malfunction to a willful act, even though logically we know it's a mechanical failure. This isn't a lapse in intelligence, but rather an efficient, if sometimes inaccurate, way to quickly make sense of an event and formulate a response. This reflex is particularly evident in situations involving uncertainty or a lack of control. When we don't understand why something is happening, or when we feel powerless to change it, attributing agency can provide a sense of psychological comfort, or at least a framework for processing the event. Consider the sailor who talks to the sea, or the farmer who speaks to their crops. In environments largely beyond their control, anthropomorphism allows them to engage with the unpredictable elements as if they were dealing with a conscious entity, fostering a sense of connection and a perceived, albeit illusory, ability to influence outcomes. Furthermore, our relationship with technology has amplified this tendency. As our devices become more complex and autonomous, they often exhibit behaviors that feel intentional, even if they are just following algorithms. A smart speaker that misunderstands a command or an AI assistant that gives a quirky response can easily be perceived as having a personality or even a mood. We name our cars, our boats, and even our particularly reliable tools. This act of naming is a powerful form of anthropomorphism, transforming an inanimate object into something more personal, more individual. It deepens our bond with these items, making them feel like companions rather than mere instruments. In a very real sense, our brains are constantly scanning the environment for faces and intentions, even in the absence of actual consciousness. This allows us to rapidly interpret social cues, predict behaviors, and navigate our interpersonal world. When applied to the inanimate, it reveals the pervasive nature of our social cognitive architecture, constantly seeking connection and meaning even where none objectively exist. Beyond anthropomorphism, talking to inanimate objects serves a crucial cognitive function. It acts as a self-reflection loop, a way for our brains to process and organize information. When we verbalize a problem, even to an empty room, we are essentially externalizing our internal monologue. This process forces us to structure our thoughts, to articulate vague ideas into concrete words, and to identify logical gaps or inconsistencies. Think of a programmer debugging code, muttering to their screen about a specific line, or a writer talking aloud to their manuscript, debating plot points. This isn't just venting, it's a highly effective problem-solving strategy. The act of speaking activates different parts of the brain compared to silent thought, often leading to new insights or a clearer understanding of the issue at hand. This is closely related to the concept of think-aloud protocols used in cognitive science, where participants are asked to verbalize their thoughts while solving a problem. Researchers have found that this simple act can reveal intricate details of cognitive processes that would otherwise remain hidden. When we talk to objects, we are, in a sense, unknowingly applying a similar protocol to our own minds. Furthermore, this outward projection of thought can aid memory and recall. Articulating a sequence of steps or a set of facts aloud, even to a non-responsive audience, can help solidify that information in our minds. It creates an auditory trace, an additional pathway for memory retrieval, making it easier to recall later. Consider someone trying to remember where they left their keys. They might walk around the house saying aloud, "Okay, I came in, then I put down my bag, then I went to the kitchen." This verbal reconstruction helps them retrace their steps and jog their memory, effectively using the inanimate environment as a stage for their cognitive replay. This phenomenon also extends to emotional regulation. When faced with stress or anxiety, talking through the situation, even to a pet or a photograph, can help us to process our feelings. It allows us to give voice to our internal turmoil, which can be the first step towards finding a solution or simply gaining emotional distance. In essence, the inanimate object acts as a silent, non-judgmental confidant. It provides an uncritical audience, allowing us to explore our thoughts and feelings without the fear of interruption, judgment, or misinterpretation that might come from a human listener. This safe space for verbal processing is invaluable for mental clarity and emotional well-being. Sometimes, talking to inanimate objects is a poignant reflection of our need for connection, particularly in moments of loneliness or intense empathy. When human interaction is scarce or when we feel misunderstood, the non-judgmental presence of an object can become a substitute for a listener. This is evident in the bond many people form with their pets, speaking to them as if they understand every word. While a pet may not grasp syntax, the act of speaking to them fulfills a fundamental human need for vocalization, for expressing thoughts and emotions aloud. This extends to objects that represent connection, like photographs of loved ones or even mementos. Addressing these items, sharing stories or feelings with them, can be a way of maintaining an imagined connection, a psychological bridge across absence or distance. The profound impact of this phenomenon is perhaps most starkly illustrated in extreme situations, such as solitary confinement or isolation. Prisoners, explorers, or survivors in dire circumstances often create imaginary friends or form deep conversational bonds with inanimate objects, a volleyball named Wilson, for example. These dialogues are not a sign of madness, but a testament to the human mind's desperate need for social engagement and narrative construction, even when faced with overwhelming solitude. The object in these cases becomes a receptacle for projected consciousness, a mirror reflecting the individual's own thoughts and feelings back to them, helping to maintain a sense of self and sanity. It's a vivid demonstration of how our social cognitive systems are designed for constant interaction, even to the point of fabricating it. Furthermore, talking to objects can be an act of empathy, an extension of our desire to care for and nurture. This is particularly true for items we've invested time, effort, or emotion into. A beloved car, a cherished musical instrument, or even a painstakingly crafted piece of art. We might praise them, encourage them, or even apologize to them, treating them with a respect that borders on affection. This behavior underscores the fluidity of our mental boundaries, our capacity to imbue the world with meaning and sentience, not just out of cognitive error, but out of a deep-seated need for connection and a profound, sometimes lonely, echo of our own humanity. Beyond emotional release and cognitive processing, talking to things that can't hear us also has surprisingly practical benefits, particularly in the realm of performance and focus. This phenomenon is often observed in athletes, performers, and skilled tradespeople who engage in a form of self-talk directed at their tools or even the environment itself. An athlete might mentally will the ball into the hoop, or a golfer might encourage their club to make the perfect swing. While they know the object itself isn't listening, this verbalization serves to focus their own intention, to mentally rehearse the desired outcome, and to synchronize their mental and physical actions. It's a form of ritual, a psychological anchor that helps to channel concentration. This isn't superstition, it's a well-documented aspect of motor learning and cognitive control. Speaking aloud, even to an inanimate object, can help to externalize instructions, breaking down complex tasks into manageable verbal cues. For example, a surgeon might talk through the steps of a procedure, or a mechanic might verbally identify each part they need to access. This verbalization acts as a self-instructional tool, keeping the individual on task, preventing errors, and enhancing the precision of their actions. It creates an auditory feedback loop, reinforcing the correct sequence of operations and maintaining a steady pace. The phenomenon also plays a role in enhancing memory during task execution. When performing a series of actions, verbally narrating them can help to keep the sequence in mind, preventing missed steps or confusion. This is particularly useful in high-pressure environments where mental load is significant. Consider a chef in a busy kitchen, calling out ingredients or steps to themselves as they prepare a complex dish. They're not expecting the vegetables to respond, rather they're using their voice to guide their own actions, to maintain order amidst chaos, and to ensure culinary perfection. In a very real sense, the unhearing object becomes a silent partner in our endeavors, a point of focus for our intentions, and a mirror for our cognitive processes. It highlights the profound interconnectedness of language, thought, and action, revealing how our seemingly irrational dialogues are, in fact, powerful tools for navigating the complexities of our world and achieving our goals. This practical magic of vocalizing to the unhearing is not about believing objects have consciousness, but about harnessing the unique capabilities of our own minds to organize, focus, and perform at our best.